Welcome back to this explainer. Look, have you ever wondered why your own personal evolution, your newfound boundaries, your growth, that fresh confidence you're feeling, why it sometimes causes such intense social friction with the people who are supposedly closest to you? Well, today, we are going to put on our clinical psychologist hats and dive deep into the fascinating and honestly sometimes unsettling world of human psychology to figure out exactly why that happens. It's a dark truth, but most people waste years of their lives just trying to explain themselves to others. We think, if we just used the exact right words, they'd finally get it. They'd finally understand us. But we really have to stop and ask, are these people actually interacting with you? The unsettling reality we're unpacking today is that people rarely see you as you truly are. Instead, they interact with the psychological roles they've unconsciously assigned to you. Maybe you're the good son, or the quiet friend, or the sensitive one. And once they decide on your identity, every single action you take gets heavily filtered through that specific, distorted lens. So, to unpack all of this, we're going to follow a structured clinical arc today. We'll cover 6 distinct areas: diagnosis, close ties, workplace dynamics, over-explaining, maintaining boundaries, and we'll finish up with a practical self-checklist. All right, let's jump right into step 1. Diagnosis, unconscious human projection. To treat this social exhaustion, we first need to define the underlying forces at play. And it turns out there's this profound concept from Carl Jung that hits the nail on the head here: projection. Human beings are constantly projecting their own unconscious material onto the people around them. So, what does this mean for you? It means that when someone misunderstands your ambition as selfishness or your quietness as insecurity, they aren't actually looking at you at all. They're literally interacting with their own fears, their own unmet desires, and their private frustrations. They simply lack the self-awareness to see past their own internal projections. Which naturally leads us to the persona. We are all socially engineered right from childhood, aren't we? Smile more, be polite, survive those deeply awkward family dinners without causing a scene. We develop this mask just to survive and get a little approval. But here's the catch. While this mask protects you initially, it eventually becomes a prison for your authentic self. The nice person literally forgets how to express anger. The strong person loses the ability to admit they're in pain. We end up building this false self that society absolutely loves, but it completely traps our true identity. So you might be wondering, what happens to the real you? It doesn't just vanish. It becomes what Jung called the shadow. These are your buried, authentic impulses. When you suppress who you are just to be accepted, that heavy shadow just waits inside you. It's kind of like a pressure cooker. It transforms into sudden flashes of anger, quiet resentment, and that totally unexplained social exhaustion you feel after managing other people's reactions all day. It creates this profound psychological split, leaving you feeling entirely unseen, even if you're sitting in a crowded room full of your closest friends. Moving right along to section 2, toxic contracts in close ties. Let's shift our analysis to family and friendships for a second. There is a massive, absolutely crucial difference between healthy mutual support and a toxic unconscious contract. You see, a lot of relationships are built on a hidden psychological agreement that literally nobody talks about out loud. It basically goes like this: I will continue being who you expect me to be if you do the exact same for me. But the moment you evolve and break that unspoken agreement, man, the intense passive-aggressive discomfort begins. The other person hasn't suddenly turned evil. It's just that the predictable version of you they benefited from is suddenly disappearing, and that makes them wildly uncomfortable. Let's look at how this plays out with disowned traits, especially in families. Take a mother and son, for example. A mother might unconsciously resist her son becoming independent because, frankly, his dependence is what gives her identity meaning. Or think about friendships. A friend might passively discourage your personal growth because your old insecurities actually made them feel a little superior. When you grow, you force them to identify, confront, and eventually integrate the parts of themselves they've completely abandoned. Simply put, your newfound freedom exposes their captivity. Let's apply these concepts to professional environments in Section 3, Navigating Workplace Social Tension. Workplace systems quietly but heavily reward predictability. An employee who behaves the same way every day is super easy to categorize. And categorized people, well, they're much easier to control. But what happens when a colleague suddenly gains real, non-performative confidence? Maybe the quiet person starts speaking up directly, or the chronic people pleaser actually starts saying no to those absurd Friday afternoon requests. Suddenly, the whole office environment reacts. You'll see subtle exclusion or passive aggression, or those little just joking remarks. Your unexpected transformation completely destabilizes the unconscious social hierarchy of the office. And this is exactly where we have to be super vigilant about the signs of manipulation. Manipulative peers will constantly test your emotional dependence. They will actually intentionally misunderstand you. Why? Because they know that confusion weakens you. By purposely withholding their understanding, they gain social control. They exploit your natural need for validation, keeping you constantly questioning your own intentions. They want you to actually scratch that. They need you to feel strangely guilty for doing absolutely nothing wrong, just to keep you psychologically small. So, how do we fix this? Section 4, How to Stop Over-Explaining. We're moving into the prescriptive phase of our session here with 3 actionable steps to stop this exhausting cycle. Step 1, you have to recognize that constant self-justification is basically a form of unconscious begging. You are begging to exist in someone else's mind without distortion, which you cannot control. Step 2, calmly accept being misunderstood. It's tough, I know, but some people literally need you to remain misinterpreted so they can maintain their emotional advantage over you. And step 3, refuse to panic. Staying silent during an uncomfortable conflict is not a weakness. It is an immense show of power. It entirely strips away their psychological leverage. Next up, Section 5, Maintaining Boundaries Against Projections. Here's the thing. When you finally stop over-explaining yourself, controlling people completely lose access to your emotional center. And when they lose access, their manipulation totally fails. Establishing firm boundaries often frustrates people because, unfortunately, they confuse love and friendship with having unrestricted VIP access to your energy and compliance. Truly healthy people will never require you to constantly defend your own reality. It's only controlling people who benefit from keeping you confused. So, to really protect your peace and detach from that exhausting need for approval, keep these strategies in mind. Stop performing weakness just to make the people around you comfortable. Stop seeking external approval. Wholeness is an internal job, not a socially approved one. Recognize that guilt is frequently used as an invisible leash, a form of social control. And lastly, let the illusions die. It takes an enormous amount of courage to drop your mask, for sure, but doing so naturally filters right out the people who are only ever attached to your performance. Which brings us to our final diagnostic tool, Section 6. The Performative Behavior Self-Checklist. It's time for a little bit of self-reflection here. Ask yourself, am I betraying my true self just to maintain my current comfort level? What truth have I been actively avoiding because acceptance just felt a whole lot safer? I want you to pay close attention to your micro-behaviors. Think about it. Where does your laugh or your tone of voice automatically shift depending on who just walked into the room? Where do you swallow your anger or downplay your own ambition? Pinpointing these specific environments helps you realize exactly where adaptation has tragically replaced your actual identity. As we piece all of this together, I want to leave you with a really powerful observation from Carl Jung. The privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are. Jung deeply understood the hidden costs of this privilege. Becoming yourself is this profound act of individuation that brings massive internal wholeness, absolutely, but it also brings a very specific kind of loneliness. It means accepting that some misunderstandings are just the natural consequence of becoming someone that others can no longer control. Which brings us to the ultimate crossroads, and the final question for our explainer today. Will you continue exhausting yourself trying to be understood by a world that is heavily committed to misunderstanding you, or will you choose to become real? The choice between psychological comfort and authentic reality is entirely yours. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. I really hope this synthesis has empowered you to step fully and unapologetically into your authentic self. Catch you next time.